The Bloodstone Chronicles, Book 1, A Darker Sun, by David Inkling. Chapter 2, An Exceptional Assembly. A week before in the city, the Grand Bishop, always referred to as the Bishop, called an exceptional assembly. It is supposed to be secret, which means a great bell is calling the bishops from every district, and the entire population can hear its booming voice across each street, over the entire river. It sings out a single repetitive note of alarm, but no one knows why. That is the only secret part. The bishops have each come to the city for their annual summer alliance. They gather in various enclaves and minor subdivisions, but they will come together now as the Great Holiness, the city bell, summons them. They will all be in attendance for once, which is a major feat in itself. On the river, a taxi boat pilot steadies his vessel and tries to ignore the ringing.
It's somewhat strange, I'm thinking, to hold a midweek gathering, is it not, your most high and holy graces?
The pilot is surprised to see such pristine white cloth on the seats of his rather grubby riverboat. The water laps the hull as they sit. Each silent face ignores him. He is more used to the custom of unlaundered seats of street sellers of all types. But he is very pleased to be steering and piloting his taxi, containing no less than 3 bishops' bottoms, even if they only wish to cross the river to the great solar palace.
It must be a very important occasion, sires,
he says with a fresh question. They remain a wall of silence. Their eyes do not seem to agree with him, but nor do they disagree, so he presses on as he places the oar into the water and strains against the current.
It is an honour that you should step into the boat of Todd Singleman,
he begins.
Truly an honour for me and my family. They will be so impressed when I tell them. No doubt the matter's calling you to trust the waterways must be of great importance, and I'm guessing it may well relate to the preparations and gatherings or what's been happening on the river. Now let me see, for some 10 days already?
They sit before him like statues, but they eye this pungent man who speaks copiously, needlessly, and most suspiciously.
It's such a shame indeed that so many of those truly beautiful birds have been caught and caged. There they go, shipped back and forth this way and that, all over the place for the last few weeks. Indeed, I was only wondering what new celebration or festival of birds the palace might be planning, for the delight of your gracious selves, no less.
The silence in the boat's passenger seats is solid.
Now I was thinking, what would the bishops have need of such an ornithological display involving, as I reckon it must be, every Kingflier left in the kingdom? Do you know, I ask myself this question and I find I am unusually speechless. I am strangely without an answer.
The pilot digs deep with his oars. He remains without an answer. The 3 bishops have never before condescended to climb down into a riverboat, but the great bell is indeed loud, demanding and persistent, and it is calling them urgently. They cannot ignore the Great Holiness and must forsake the comfort of their carriages with the finest white horses and the costliest gilt finishing. Absence from an exceptional assembly is disastrous politically. It would be noticed. They stare ahead and keep their silence, try their best to ignore the smells drifting to them from Todd Singleman's unwashed body, and stare up at the approaching towers. Todd's bitter odour exudes unpleasantness, almost as much as his cloying and humorless charm. They throw a purse of coin into the bottom of the boat as they leave. It is 10 times the price of the crossing, but they have no wish to touch any coin in exchange and risk the contamination of lowly hands. Who knows what diseases lurk in the people who frequent this mode of transport on a daily basis? The bishops ignore the pilot's grovelling gratitude and step ashore. Todd Singleman bows and watches their feet, clad in fine leather boots, climb out of his boat. But he lifts his ears, so it's going to plan, Todd hears. It's the dark-skinned bishop as he steps onto the quayside. Precisely, the other two say in unison, except events are unfolding even sooner than we hoped. They move away from the river and enter the gatehouse of the nearest tower. "Guard, please see to the boatman," says the white-haired bishop at the front. A singularly unfortunate accident would suffice. He starts to climb one of the staircases on either side of the solar palace and does not wish to be delayed. The second bishop turns back to where the servant had joined them. He is dressed as a guard with a silvered weapon and a grand livery of black edged with red and embroidered, so it seems with a large 3-pronged trident, or it might be a claw. It's a colour and design that is unknown in the citadel. In another 24 hours, however, it will be familiar on every street corner and in every sun hall. The bishops move on and climb the flights of stairs as the great bell tolls. There have been no exceptional assemblies for over 60 years, so the palace, a vast structure that rises high above the city of Wilden, is a hive of busyness. There are tall stair towers either side, each with 700 steps that lead to a grand terrace over the palace itself. With its impressive rooms, it is over 1,000 years old, and the noise of feet rushing fills each level. Beyond this terrace is a further tower, built in the last 300 years with an even higher dome and a large meeting hall. Its gilt dome glistens like the sun, and it is towards this which the bishops stride. Figures in white are drawn from all directions. Each moves swiftly, as if there are no legs beneath their long frocked garments. They glide like invigorated swans and flock at a huge door. They congregate high up in the vaulted grand occultatorium. This is the high tower over the citadel, the place where they can see and be seen, where the whole city can be seen, and with the shiny brass oculocuniculum, the heavens can also be seen. They gather as the great bell, the great holiness, tolls on and on above them. The flock of white garments gather, less like their usual bevy of swans, and more like a gaggle of geese. They move smoothly on the surface of the white marble floor, in stockinged feet, for no dust or dirt may be brought into this most sacred palace. The calm but heated air of the summer city is alive with whisperings. Every possible scenario is shared. Tongues tremor, and there is a deep disturbance caused by the resonance of the great holiness. A doom of silence falls when the guard at the door beats his staff upon the ground. There is a single echoing thud. An enforced silence instantly falls as Grand Bishop Bull enters the hall. The flock of white bodies bows for a long time, then rises and sits with practiced synchronicity as the bishop walks past each row, up the aisle, and then takes his own seat at a throne. This throne is the chair, little more than an ornate seat, unlike the grand gold of the monarchical throne, a relic of the cathedral hall on the ground floor, and which was abandoned many years ago. The plain chair is raised on a 3-tiered white dais, and its cushion is upholstered in the deepest blue. The Great Holiness booms one last time. Its echo reverberates for almost 2 minutes. But the bishop does not wait for the accustomed silence.
"So,"
Bishop Bull declares. He stands and addresses the hall.
"Eminences, and those few Grand Maesters of the Sun Halls who have been especially invited, you are welcome. Thank you for attending at such short notice. I will not keep you from your duties and summer festivities, but you must hear the news that has come to me in the last day. And it is only right that it does not come to you from unreliable sources. His Eminence, the Prince Simon, the Bishop and Grand Oculist, has observed something, an aberration. He has discovered something new. It has since been confirmed, as is our custom, by 2 further witnesses, the Princes Dokar and Kazib. As you are aware, any newly discovered sightings in the skies must be recorded and determined according to our mapped heavenly cycles. Most are found to be recurring observations, suggesting cycles that go back to our earliest records. However, Prince Simon has discovered what he has termed an irregularity. There is a fresh object that does not appear on the charts. Perhaps you would explain exactly what you have seen, Simon. The Grand Bishop sits down at this point, and His Eminence, the Prince Simon, a small, wizened cardinal, rises to his feet and staggers slightly. He then makes his way delicately to the front of the hall and climbs first one, then a second step. He is not permitted, according to the decorum of the hall, to rise to the 3rd step, but he stumbles a little uneasily on the 2nd step and looks to the Grand Bishop, who nods once. This is his invitation, and he takes the additional 3rd step up. So it is that the records will state that Prince Simon stands on the very top step, a few feet from the grand chair, when he speaks. "Brothers,"
he says, then stops, watches, waits. For too long, he knows the ancient orders have been denied their birthright to the throne. The last remnant of Princes of the White Dawn has maintained a degree of authority by joining the church and moving quietly amongst the cardinals. They are bound by chains of fealty and adherence to current thinking. But Simon wishes and longs for a return to ancient doctrines. Bishop Simon, the Prince of the House of Sacred Fire, steps one pace closer to the chair. Prince Simon keeps them waiting. His eyes glow as he turns and looks down on the room. Then he leans on his cane, carefully as he speaks. Recent whisperings have only slightly perturbed him, even as he entered. But these murmurings are too late, even for his acute ear, and any resistance will cease soon enough. He knows he is growing stronger every moment. Every second, he can feel it. He licks his lips,
and begins. I trust you have all studied the fragments, the discounted texts of the heretic and so-called Maestra Lucille. I'm sure many, misguided as they are, will claim to place faith in the moral legitimacy of her words. But if, as we must agree, and according to the orthodoxy, we can have no faith based on lies, they are not even myths. There is nothing to fear. However, the uninformed and ignorant harbour faith in her speaking out in the Lamentations, which we rightly call Lucille's heresy. What is more, they put great store in feverish whisperings that come from the wilder words of others. They, like many if not all the Maestra, contaminate and pollute our doctrines of the great text.
A wave of anxiety ripples through the flock. There are audible murmurs that eddy back and forth in the hall. Maestra have been free to speak for centuries, so Simon's tone and feverish words are out of favour with many, if not most, of the hall. The women have liberated many ideas and much freer thinking. There is now a motherly view of divine love. All have, up to now, agreed that this is balanced, inclusive, and wholesome. Only in the most recent years, some have even put forward the case for the Maestras to stand for election to the very hall where the men now sit, and where, if successful, it might open up the conceivable possibility, if absurdity, of a female Grand Bishop. Fearing this, Prince Simon has taken this opportunity to reopen a debate that has scarred the halls across the nation for too long. Bishop Bull interjects.
Simon, focus on the significant observation, please.
Indeed, Simon nods. He breathes slowly and licks his lips once more.
In short, Eminences, we have seen an object in the heavens, a comet shining like a star and moving across the depths of the heavens. We have tracked it for months. It is, according to our calculation, no threat to our home sphere, but it will pass us close by, and he pauses here dramatically. It will darken the sun.
Silence falls over the hall.
And so darkness will fall, cloud thick as a pall.
The words are not fully uttered before uproar is unleashed. The bishops rise up. Some call out in shock, others in despair. There are cries of heresy, nonsense, and shame. The final words are a quotation, words from the Maestra Lucille.
Do not break the peace, brother, please, Bishop Bull says.
He gets to his feet and walks towards Simon. But if he thinks he might restore order, he is sadly wrong, for they are his very last words. As he moves towards Bishop Simon, the Prince of the House of the Sacred Fire lifts his cane, and with a grand gesture, he slides the sheath of wood from it to reveal a long stiletto sword. He places the sharp point of it precisely in the chest of Bishop Bull and drives it deep into him. In a few breathless moments, Grand Bishop Bull is dead. The room breaks open in a chaos of screams and alarm. The sacrilegious shock of blood staining the steps of the grand chair is alarming. There is blood, too, on the white marble floor. On lifting his own hand, Bishop Simon sees the blood upon his fingers. He holds it up before his face and smiles. Bringing them close to his mouth, he smears the blood upon his lips, and his tongue moves once more over them. His eyes smile. Quite delicious. These horrifying scenes have distracted the flock so much that no one sees the blood on the lips of Bishop Simon. No one sees how even one taste makes him rise up a little in height, or how the frail, wizened frame seems to transform almost imperceptibly. No one sees how the Prince Dokar and Kazib look on, and they too lick their lips. Bishop Simon stands before the whole gathering. His back is straighter, the muscles in his arms and legs firmer. He is stronger in body and voice. In fact, he looks strangely younger. No one sees his next action. He cannot resist a further step towards the chair. He moves, and as if on cue, the great holiness rings once more and silences the room with its deadening doom. The princes Dokar and Kazib, also on cue, both move at this point and join Simon on the dais. They glide to the front and clap their hands. It is a signal, so it seems, for the doors immediately open. Unseen and outside, the Grand Bishop's guards, members of his personal security force, are all lying dead. Each one has been stabbed by the new guard, those cloaked in a sombre black livery, edged in red but hooded and worn by the tallest, darkest figures. They sweep into the room. They stand, each with a hand resting on the hilt of their silvered swords. They form a wall of new guard and surround the flock. "Sit!" Bishop Simon commands, and addresses the hall. "You do not need to fear. Bishop Bull has simply been removed from his untenable position. He has always been swayed and corrupted by false teachings. We shall restore truth. The heresy of Lucille and her subversives is no longer permitted. False teaching will burn." A flurry of figures stand in defiance or shock or simple alarm. "Sit!" Bishops Dokar and Kazib call out, and they scan the faces before them. But not a single bishop moves. Simon nods and the guards draw their swords. They hold them high over the bishops' heads. "Sit," Bishop Simon repeats calmly. The room sinks with a soft crumpling of white fabric. There is an almost silent intake of breath. The hushed tension is as heavy as 100 hearts. The bishops wait. "There shall be no fulfillment in any word of the muttered heresies. No mention of Kingfliers." Another unsettled gasp rises from the hidden ranks of white-seated bodies. "Fear not, we have them all. They have been collected and caged, eradicated from the land. We have been eliminating them slowly for the last 4 years. These, you will see now, are the last 100. There is one for each of us, eminences." As he speaks, further aides to the guard march in, holding gilded cages in which bright blue Kingfliers sit on metal perches, 4 in each cage, 25 cages, 1 bird for each cardinal district. "In accordance with the statute, I declare that Bishop Bull has been found guilty of apostasy. It has been duly confirmed by 2 witnesses. His guilt was evident in his corruption and a collusion with Maestri. He has been removed from office, executed. So, Prince Dokar says the final words, whilst looking down at the pool of blood. Justice of a sort has been publicly spoken over the dead. Today, we declare the establishment of a caltrop, a triumvirate of 3, in which we will prevent any further individual from taking abusive control of priestly orders, or indeed any holy institution. Prince Simon speaks. We 3 shall share the great responsibilities of governance with all due humility, Prince Kazib says. The bishops look at the corpse of the Bishop Bull in silence. It is motionless on the floor and lies in a growing pool of dark red blood, which spreads out and moves slowly across the pristine and immaculate floor. The colour drains from the faces of the bishops, as if with compassion, and it is as if all the blood in the room has suddenly been drawn to the floor. There is a sweet and sickly fragrance that rises and adds its own disturbing anxiety to every pallid face. A celestial artist of holy orders painting this scene for posterity would need to use the deepest alizarin crimson to capture the beauty of this garish red dashed upon the white marbled floor. Prince Dokar smiles as he imagines the work being painted as a fine fresco over the hall. His nose twitches as he tastes and identifies the iron in the blood. Blood. Ah, such a good source of nutrients of all sorts, he thinks, and licks his lips eagerly. But he will have to wait, he knows. The first benefits of governance do not always come immediately, but later. Later, he will feast freely. Bishop Simon holds out his hand at this point, and a guard presents an opened cage to him. He takes a blue Kingflier from the cage and lifts it high. We now declare our dedication and allegiance to the caltrop. We offer the life of this Kingflier, a bird for each of us, a new baptism of blood to cleanse each heart, each mind, each body, Simon says. Then he takes the bird, twists its neck, tears its head from the body, and the blood falls onto his chest, on the white robes, a bloodied insignia. A bold new allegiance is born, he declares. The past is expunged. One faithful communion. The blood beautiful unites us in robes of red. Dokar and Kazib follow suit, and they call out, blood beautiful, as they twist the necks of each bird they hold. Let be the caltrop! They declare their oaths, and the red anointing falls. Each person in the room freezes. Never! An elderly bishop calls out in the front row. He steps forward and moves past the guard as if he might simply walk away. The nearest guard takes his sword and thrusts it deep into the bishop's side. The room gasps again, and the body folds, then falls to the floor. Delicious, Bishop Kazib thinks. We won't have to share the bull's blood. And his tongue moves over his lips as yet more blood spills out over the marbled floor. It seeps into cracks and stains the slight scratches on the surface. One body of believers, Simon declares. And he steps down, takes the allocated Kingflier for the dying cardinal, and breaks that too. He anoints the dying man with blood and casts down the dead bird. One bird, one cardinal, he insists. The guards move to stand at the door with their swords raised. One cardinal after another takes a bird, breaks its feeble neck, and lets the blood anoint them. The sickening cracking of the birds and their wrenching ends fills the room with barely stifled nausea. There are muted echoes of blood beautiful that ripple around the room. The three bishops end the ritual with a declaration. One body of believers. So. Across the room, the bishops echo with a muted chorus of so. And then as they stand, smeared and grimed in the gore of blood, the guard part at the door, and a final silver cage is brought forth. Held aloft, it is carried by a cardinal wearing new robes of office, dyed entirely red. He glides between them, vibrant and sedate. "Please be seated," Simon says, and his words are immediately followed by uneasy, soft settling. No one dare speak. "See, your new robes. The blood red is the might of our majesty. You are now the sole leaders of men in your districts. The jurisdiction of the caltrop will move from simple religious function to manage all areas of public and private life. Every aspect of society now falls under your direct control, and you will administer in our names." The room is silent. "You will communicate directly with us," Kazib says. "Now before we leave," Simon says, "witness one more thing. Here, finally, look upon the death of the last Kingflier." He reaches into the cage and takes the small bird from its silver perch. He holds it aloft and its wings flutter, frantic and nervous. But it is caught, pinned by the neck between his fingers. With the passing of this bird, we see the death of heresy. There will be no Kingfliers' flight to usher in the so-called dawn and the era of the sun. There will only be allegiance to the caltrop, the new state. The only devotion will be ours. The three bishops stand together at the front of the hall. They hold their hands aloft as Simon breaks the bird's neck and flings its limp body onto the dead form of Bishop Bull. At some unseen signal, but as if by some movement of magic, the Great Holiness rings once more, a slow tolling, telling the solemnity of the moment. Then together, the three bishops depart. They glide across the hall, their bodies in step, smooth and sliding, as if their feet barely touch the floor. The remaining bishops stand in silence. They watch as the guard follow one by one. It is their cue to leave too. The exceptional assembly is clearly over, but it feels as if they cannot leave, do not want to follow the triad of bishops into the hallways of a once hallowed building. A silent ghost of allegiance to the old order haunts the room. They feel it. Reluctance unites them. Even after all they have seen, and what each of them has done in betrayal of their old vows, they stand together in silent shock. One or two lower their heads. Is it in prayer or the depth of despair? Who will be the first to leave? Who will allow themselves to be seen to simply follow on in step behind the caltrop? Then the stillness is broken. There is a gentle flutter, a movement. The body of the last Kingflier lying on the corpse, moves. It twitches. It moves again. A wing flutters. It breathes, then breathes again. An eye opens. The heads of the front row of bishops turn. They draw close together in whispered tremoring. The bird is definitely alive. The gentle sighs give way to a wave of gasps that ripple across the room. The whisper rises and falls, and their eyes open wide and stare as the bird flicks its wings and stands. It draws the attention of all until the whole assembly stares in awe and disbelief at this most exceptional moment. So, the bird, eyes sparkling, quite suddenly rises gently up into the air. Its wings beat so fast that all hear the sound of hope in the humming. And as it rises, something else quite magical occurs. The blue and orange bird transforms. Its feathers fade, it glistens, it glows, and it burns with feathers that are now ruby red. The Kingflier rises. Startlingly spectacular and surrounded by the brightest glowing cloud of light, it ascends, up it goes, high above their heads, it gleams over the room. Then when all have seen it, the bright light of it drops down, swoops to the open window, and is gone. Shocked silence smothers any voice. No one dare speak. No one dares to move. They stand for a mute moment. And then when they must breathe again, quickly, together they hurry from the hall, heedless of any who sees them go. They are eager now to find some secret place, to discuss the arrival of the bright red bird. It is a sudden hope. They need to share the secret and reflect upon the other, hidden, partially known, partially understood, and too long forgotten prophetic words of a long dead maestra. By the end of the day, Moll Singleman is looking agitated and with increasing annoyance from the window of her small second-story rooms in the old docks. She is wondering where her husband, Todd, can possibly have got to. His dinner sits cold and congealed on the table. She's considering exactly which of the 5 drinking houses he usually walks past he will have fallen into. Little does she know that Todd, the not-so-jolly pilot of the river taxi, has inadvertently fallen not over the threshold of an alehouse, but into the river, and is at that very moment face down in the grimy slime of the water that he has, or had been, his livelihood. His body floats in the shallows downstream, and soaks up all sorts of unsavoury scum and disease that drifts in its infected currents. If only he were able to move, or lift his head, or do anything at all, he might have survived. But the heavy blow to the back of the head that led to his falling in prevents him from doing any of those things.
Silly fool, where is he?
Moll says. She tucks and draws her curtain across the window. At the quayside where his empty boat is now moored, figures clad in black and edged with red are moving quickly, dragging other living bodies out. Their furtive actions can be distinctly heard. But this is usual in the old docks, where such scuffles, groans and whimpers are routinely ignored. Are these not the normal sounds of midnight crimes, found in the dark shadows of a dock? Is this not a robbery, or a dark seditious assignation, or even the rancid tumbling of fleshy customers? There is clearly a struggle of resistance of some sort that is soon overpowered. But then the dockside lifting gear is weighted down with unusual loads. These are hoisted up, and something else is left there hanging, moving fitfully upon freshly strung ropes, whose nooses are tightening with each sickening kick. Up above the harbour, and visible from all the nearby streets, are 3 jittering bodies, the faces of each of these maestra, who were all recognised in the more educated parts of the city and who had often been heard to challenge the male-only bishops, are now obscured with cloth sacks. Furthermore, around the necks of these struggling bodies are hung signs to spell out in simple letters the women's crimes. Speaking out, heresy, and writing. As the dense night closes its eyes to the terrible crimes being committed, these bodies are quickly stilled. Soon they hang limp. Only then does a small red bird flutter down towards the lowered heads of each corpse. It grows slightly larger and brighter as it lands on each head. It flies up high where it shines brightly and disappears into the sky. It is gone in a flash of crimson light, a light that burns with all the brilliance of a shooting star.